G'day YouTube, my name's Lance. Welcome to Bundy Bear's Shed. Well, we're doing our little TE20 lift cover up, and I've got a few, well, I've got a few different lift cylinders we're going to have a look at today and just see which way we go with them. Now, the standard lift cylinder is here. That was the one that come out of the tractor. Now, this is a later tractor. It has the larger bolts in the lift cover here where the pressure port goes, and it also has the O-ring here. So we're going to have a bit of a fiddle with the different cylinders and see. Now, the one on my, well, over here, that's my left, that's a Quality Tractor Parts one. Now, that's one I've had here for ages and ages. When I first started doing my 1948 up, I bought this, and look, I've had it for a lot of years, so the things that apply to that today may not necessarily be what the new batch is. So as of January 2022, I had a look on the Quality Tractor Parts website, and they are out of cylinders at the moment, so there's a batch coming in, and whether what we find with this cylinder applies to the new batch, I don't know, so keep that in mind. This next one along here, this is a Sparex. Now, the Sparex part number is S42228, and that's one that Sparex sponsored me. They sponsor my tractor parts on my projects, so that's a sponsorship one that they gave me to play with. I bought the quality one back ages ago. This is a standard one. Now, this is a Bearco B1629. Now, the Bearco 1629, Bearco's an Australian company, and I think Old 20 Parts over in England sells a few of Alan Bear's parts, and they're quite a large player in the Australian tractor market, Bearco. In my mind, the Sparex parts are normally a better quality, as in, and look, that's not like, I use Bearco engine kits. I've used them for 20 years, no troubles. I've used Sparex ones, no trouble. So in saying it, I believe Sparex parts are a little bit better than Bearco. Some parts are, but not all the time. So I don't want to do them any disservice. So with the O-ring there, I decided with all of the different cylinders, what I did was I put some grease on this surface here. I put the bottom bolts in because the bottom bolts are the common thing. I put them up against the O-ring here to see if I can find a mark. Now, on the Bearco one, you can see a nice clear mark from the O-ring, and the O-ring, the oil hole is close, but you can certainly see a defined line where the O-ring goes. So that's a good thing. Now, the Sparex, once again, the exact same thing. It's very close. They're all pretty close up the top here, but this is on a later cylinder. Now, on the quality one, look, that's barely covering. See the O-ring? You can still see the circle there, but the oil gallery is just going into it. So that's something to keep in mind, something to look at least. Now, to be fair with all these cylinders, that's just a test I chose to do, and I better show you the standard one. So you can see up the top there that the O-ring is very close to the edge standard. So the Bearco and the Sparex one, look, they're the same. The quality one is, look, just a little bit, you can see the circle, but yeah, the edge of the cut on the oil port is on the O-ring almost. And so on the early tractors here, they didn't have that O-ring, and I'll try and, I was going to have a note here so I could tell you the serial numbers. And I've looked it up. I've started to do a Microsoft Word sheet that we're going to transfer to a PDF file on our Queensland Tractor Spares website, so that whenever you look at buying a cylinder, we can show you what we've found and an instruction on what you may need to do to make it fit your tractor. So the early tractors, they didn't have this O-ring here. They were flat right through there, and they used to have a gasket that sort of a large diamond shaped gasket, and they had two round gaskets down here, and the two round gaskets there, they just kept it all level. And so when we're looking at the O-ring groove here and where the O-ring sits on each of these cylinders, keep in mind that with the gasket there, this test would be irrelevant. It's only a test for the O-ring type cylinders. Now, when they got the second serial number, and look, I will put these numbers down the bottom for you. Have a look in the description. And at a certain serial number, they changed from these 7/16 holes, which was the standard for many years, to, I believe that's 1/2 inch. So there's different part numbers for those bolts. So at a certain serial number, your tractor, up to a certain serial number, your tractor will have 4 bolts the same thickness. And after the certain serial number, the main bolts around this housing here, as the pressure increased, these bolts got bigger. See, these ones don't fit in there. Now, the quality tractor spares or tractor parts cylinder, it's already got the holes drilled out. Now, I don't know what goes on there, but look, they're drilled out. And one thing I do find is the heads of the bolts, the squares on the bolts, where they should come in and sit flush here, they don't. They probably just need just a little off the side there. The same on this end here, and you can see where the edge is here, and then this lump here gets in the way. So on this particular cylinder, the bolt holes were right, but look, just to take a little smidgen off the side of that bolt there, nothing wrong with it. We get people bring up any slightest little thing that they have to do to a part, they're polling, they're going off. But in reality, if you can't do a couple of little things like that, you probably shouldn't be restoring tractors, because you're going to find a lot of stuff. The same people will grind and bash a tin panel for days. But I know it'd be nice if everything did fit perfectly. It certainly would be ideal, but in the world we live in, these cylinders are not being made anymore. The aftermarket people are doing them. They're doing not a bad job, but it could be better without a doubt. Now, on the Sparex cylinder, if you have a later tractor, that has to be drilled out. That's just par for the course. There's no option. The aftermarket people don't give us an option. And what I'm thinking is, and look, I'll be corrected on this if someone knows any different, but I'm thinking what happens with these cylinders is, I believe they're Ford 8N ones. And the aftermarket people, like in America, the Ford 8Ns, man, did they sell some tractors. They were selling them before the little Fergies were coming out. And I believe the cylinders, the biggest market in the world would probably be 8N, 9N type cylinders and TE20s from the States. So I think, and look, I don't know, this is just me thinking out loud, that all these cylinders we're being supplied are probably Ford 8N ones, I think. The Ford 8N, this here is a standard piston with the piston rings on it, 2.5 inch. the Ford 8N has a cylinder looks exactly the same. It has an O-ring around it. I like to put the O-ring on. I think it's a good fix. They don't have the settling trouble that the Fergies have. Now, being that, when we look at the spring around the back here, now this spring is where the fork goes. That just sits there like that, and you can lay the spring comfortably down along the cylinder. With all of the aftermarket ones, doesn't matter what colour, what breed, they have the hole up here. When you put the spring in there, there's no way that that'll sit down level. Now, it doesn't have to sit level, like I know it comes up on an angle, but what we were thinking of doing was running a grinder in here and taking that piece off. And that would give us just this same thickness of housing that the original housing had. But I've been thinking about this for a few weeks, working our way up to do the video. I've been trying to do it in between rain showers. And look, I think all we need to do is drill one hole. And if we drill a hole, if we centre punch the top here, drill a hole down into this hole, that should give us a nice little hole to pop the spring into, and once it goes down, instead of having to go in the top there, it goes down the side. I think that would be a good fix for that, just for the sake of drilling one hole. I think that's okay. You know, like, it's a pretty good thing. Now, I have a friend, Jeff, and Jeff fitted, look, probably a Sparex cylinder to a TE20. And he sent me some photos, and it's not a problem I've ever had. Then I lost the photos, I had to get him to give them to me again. But when we have a look at the cylinder sitting in place, now I'm going to grab the camera and I'm going to come up in close here. Now, with the cylinder sitting in place there, just with the bottom bolts, if we look at the curve on the top of the cylinder here, and the curve with the gasket housing there, that seems to go okay. And when we look at the cylinder comes down, and can you see? Yes, you can see that. And so you have the lump there that you see, then the cylinder comes down to give you a bit of clearance here. Now, when we put an aftermarket cylinder on, I'll just put the bolts here. It doesn't matter which aftermarket cylinder, they're all pretty well the same. Okay, you can see now, instead of a curve, we have a square coming into the equation here and a square there. Now, what Jeff was saying with his tractor, with his TE20, was where this sat in, when he tried to pull this lift cover forward to be in the right position to get these bolts in, this square here actually hit on the gear housing. And on his gearbox, he sent me a photo, and on his gearbox he's put a little cut here, along there and down there to make it fit. So that's something we have to look at too. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to bolt each cylinder up, and I'm going to do the hard yards for you. And I'm actually going to lift this on to the tractor, and I'm going to see if we have a problem with any of these at all hitting the standard housing. I have not done anything to the housing there. I haven't even got a gasket on it. We're just going to lift it on, put it off, lift it on, pull it off, and just see if we can get all the bolts in and see. So, all right, I'll just perhaps I might start with the Bearco one at this end. I'm just going to bolt it up just loosely so it doesn't move, so it's in the right place, and I'll see if that's going to be a problem for us. Okay, we've got no forks on here. We're just sitting the cylinder in to make sure we can go. Now, what Jeff showed me, he actually cut a little piece out of the housing along, and he just put a little square there instead of that rounded surface. So let's see, this is the Bearco cylinder. Now, how's it all looking? That's good. Yep, I think that'll go in. And a couple of front bolts. I think I've got to come back a little bit. Okay, that looks like a starter. That's definitely a starter. That's a starter. And that's a starter. I think this bolt's a bit dicky, to tell you the truth. Okay, we'll just get a little nut gun and just give that a quick little squirt. Okay, look, I'm thinking that's okay. Yeah, look, that one's okay. I'm just wondering, is it just touching that hole there? But I'll see if we can go further forward. Put a diagonal here again. I just want to test a few situations just to make sure. Yep, so they're all going in okay. Looks like there's not a problem there. Now what I want to have a look at now, I'll just pop these bolts up. I just want to see if there's a mark on the cylinder where there's a rub spot or anything like that. I think I can just see a little mark just on there. Boy, you're looking to see it. Has that got a bird? No. Look, I think this one's okay. Okay, here is the Sparex cylinder. I haven't done anything with this little bit here yet. We'll just test this one. It's important not to hit your fingers. Here's the hole. Okay, that's started. Yeah, look, I think that one's bumping on it. push that, try and keep it straight here. Push it forward as far as it'll go. Yep, I think that one's just bumping on it, I believe. Okay, I can just see a mark there. Just a small sliver. Now, I'll go handheld for a second with the camera and see if I can show you that. Now, just see that tiny little shiny piece there, and there. So I think he's right. Now on the Bearco one, I had a look and there is just a see that little mark there? Oh, you've got to get the light right to even see it. There it is, just there. Stay out of the bloody shadow, Lance. So there is a slight mark there. So, yeah, look, that's an interesting thing. We'll just go back, zoom out a bit. Okay, we'll undo that cylinder now. We'll take this one out. This is the quality cylinder that I've had at home for years. When you're a tractor bloke, you tend to, and you sell tractor parts, there is a chance you're going to have parts laying around. So this is just sitting right down on the bolts that way, as have they all have been like that. And we'll drop this fella down. Okay, I can see that hole there. That's firm. So we'll take this one out. I think that's just touching. And the funny thing is with this, we've sold an absolute heap of these cylinders, all brands. Never had trouble until Jeff brought it to our attention. Now both Jeff and myself are doing later tractors, so I don't know whether that has a bearing or not. Yeah, that's just on a bit of an angle, like it'd be nicer. Okay, so now can we... I think it's going to have a mark. You can feel a bit of tension there. Pop this back. Once again, there's a slight tiny patch, same as on the others. But I did bang it up there just to see. But what I might do now, it's only ever on this one side. So we might get the verniers, we might measure from hole to the back here and just see if they're all the same. Because it only ever appears to be on the right hand side. So if we measure the housing there, it's about 9.5 mil. Look at that. That's 10 mil. So this side that's touching, the housing comes back 1 millimetre more than that side, and that's why that bolt goes in and that one doesn't. So I wonder, is it a set of housings? And yeah, because I know with the 1948 and that I did it just sat on beautifully. And I've done a heap and I've never had a problem with it at all. But I wonder, is that bolt a bit tight and people are just bolting it down tight, or or is there a problem with this later housing? Okay, the problem we have with the spring here, now with it coming through off the standard housing like that, if you pull it down along straight, well, you're going to have a bend there. So what I did, I got a 4.5 mil drill and I drilled just down behind this web here, and with a 4.5 mil drill it didn't want to go in properly, like it was just a tight fit. So I got rid of that. I put a 1/4 inch drill in my trusty Makita, and I drilled a hole, then I just give it a bit of a twist and then that goes in nicely. So that sits there nice. That's all you'd want. Look, that's as good as anything. Now the bolt holes, the bigger bolts, now where are we? Yeah, they're 1/2 inch. So to get this to fit up here, this is only if you have the later one. If you have a later tractor, you're going to have to drill out the cylinder to 1/2 inch. Like on this Sparex cylinder, they're obviously made, well, like I said before, I believe the 8N tractor that has a gasket here and all the same size bolts. How that one had the big ones, I'll never know. I've never seen that before, but I have one. I definitely didn't do it. So if you want to put one of these cylinders to work in a later type housing, you're going to have to drill these out to 1/2 inch, and you're probably going to have to knock a little bit of the side of your bolt off there. Just a little bit of the square. Now look, that's not going to hurt anything. I know, some people are happy to do that and some aren't, but I'll try and actually, this Sparex one, I'm going to drill this out. I'm going to set it up in a pedestal drill, because I presume most of you have pedestal drills or a drill but not a milling machine. And I'm going to drill down through here, and I'm going to see if I can find a measurement that I think we're going to need to take off on these fellas here. Now on this tractor of mine, it's a 1954 tractor. So I have a 1951 and a late 51 as well. They all have the same size bolt holes. So the bolt holes are only a problem in the later series of tractor, and I'll give you the serial number when the bolt holes changed. So if you have this lift cylinder like I do, with the, I'll just pick you up there, with the larger holes here, you probably have a little bit of work to do. I think it's just a We can give you a cylinder, but it's just not going to fit straight on. I believe it fits the early tractors. You just pop the bolts on. You would still have to drill this hole here, I believe, just to get that looking good, and get that spring sitting straight. But I will do a PDF form up, and I'll have it on the technical section of our website, queenslandtractorspares.com.au, and I'll try and work out a guide for fitting this to a later tractor. So really, when you have a look at Steiner in America, Steiner sell this cylinder, and they sell the cylinder for the 8N tractor, the same looking cylinder, but they only sell it for up to serial number 280 something thousand in the TE20. So up to that, I believe this will bolt straight on and away it'll go. After that, there's mods to do. You can make it work, but it's probably not exactly for that tractor. Well, there you go. That's a look at our lift cylinders. And what I believe is happening, like I just said before, is that these cylinders are for the early tractors, but that's the only one that's getting made aftermarket. If you want to fit one of these standard cylinders to the later lift covers with the 1/2-inch bolts on the pressure port, near the pressure ports here, you're going to have to do a little bit of work. So Steiner in America, I haven't bought any Steiner parts for this job. I buy Steiner parts like that piston I get out of Steiner, and a few other things like that. But if you want to make the early cylinder fit the later housing, you can do it. There will be an instruction at queenslandtractorspares.com.au in the technical section, or if you find the lift cylinder on the TEA, TED, TEF20, if you look for the cylinder, go for hydraulics and linkage, look for the lift cylinder, I will have a PDF form made up that says after a certain serial number you will need to do this. All serial numbers you will need to drill this hole. It's just how it is. I'll try and work a measurement out for it. The housing hitting up here. Now, I believe that's, well, mine's the same as Jeff's, and his tractor would have been a later one too. I believe that's something that's just common to those tractors. Now, the thickness of the housing here, it's got plenty of room if you wanted to, just took a little bit off here. But I may actually draw up a template and just draw a template up to give you a millimetre or two that you can take out of your transmission housing. So while you've got the top off, you can modify the housing a little bit to take the heavier aftermarket cylinder, and look, that might be a way of keeping your tractor going. So there's a couple of different ways of looking at this. One of them is that people just want to keep their old tractor going on the farm and away they go, and there's other ones that want to restore the tractors to as they left the factory, and different people will put up with different things. Some people will be happy to do a little modification. There's a plane going right overhead while we're talking. Some people are happy to do a modification to keep their tractor going. Other people chuck their hands in the air, get on Facebook and hang shit on everyone. It's just, that's the world we live in. Don't worry about it too much, eh? But so there you go. Hopefully that's helpful. That will explain a couple of things, and look in the description, like I say, for the serial number breaks. I'll try and get them sorted in there, and I will have a PDF on queenslandtractorspares.com.au. Okay, that's it. I've waffled on enough. I'll catch you later on, eh?